Hello.
What's up, you beautiful buttercups, you honey bear, goldfish, starfish, butterflies?
What?
I'm so happy to see y'all.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited to be joined by some expert veterinarians.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Jay is going to be getting the incredible, the one and only Dr. Judy Morgan and only Dr. Lori Kosher here live on Instagram with us right now to discuss neutering our boy cats. So we are super excited about this live.
There
Dr.
she
Morgan!
is!
Hello!
Miss America! Yay! Dr. Judy Morgan, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem.
On this. Very interesting. This is actually our very first time having an interview on Instagram. So we had to do some like practice runs to see how
I've done it once or twice, and I can't say that I know what I'm doing. So anyway, but I figured it out. I'm here.
Yes, you are. This is incredible. We're trying to get Dr. Lori Kosher also to join us. You guys, this is really going to be an incredible conversation about when we neuter our boy cats. And this is a conversation that I feel like I wish I had a notepad and pen right now, because the best thing about this beautiful community is learning new things and growing together. And I really feel like today, with the incredible brain trust of Dr. Judy Morgan, thank you so much, and Dr. Lori Kosher, who is hopefully joining us shortly.
It's going to be her first one too.
Yeah, it's her first one too. Is super exciting. So, did it work?
I've sent the invite 3 times, so hopefully.
Come on, girl!
There she is!
Oh,
You did it.
Goodness. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound fantastic.
Okay.
A warm welcome to everyone who's already jumping on and joining us for this really exciting conversation about neutering our boys. I want to start with a quick intro of each of you, just to kind of give if anyone is not already familiar with you guys, just a quick intro of your experience, who you are, what you do, how you rock this world. Dr. Judy Morgan, let's start with you.
Okay, I am an integrated veterinarian. I graduated 38 years ago, so I'm aging myself. And I sold my practices almost 2 years ago, and I own Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets, which is an e-commerce and online learning source.
Wonderful.
It is an incredibly valuable resource.
Yes.
We are always dropping that link.
And
thank you
as the resource. Yes. So thank you so much. And Dr. Lori Kosher, Dr. Lori Kosher, just so you guys know, she's my first introduction into this subject altogether. And many years ago, we had a very long conversation over the phone, and she was educating me on this subject. So tell everybody a little bit about you and your practice and how amazing you are.
Well, I'm very phone challenged at the moment, as you can see, as I'm up and around, because I couldn't find my stand, and I thought I could do it on the computer. And so obviously technology is not my strong suit. I'm an integrative vet. I'm located in Albany, New York. And while I run the Healthy Dog Workshop, I do have, 5+ years in a high volume shelter. So, when all this started, we kind of got talked to about the fact that we didn't know anything about shelters. Well, guys, I've been in the trenches. I've personally spayed or neutered over 25,000 animals. So, I've seen a lot, and over the years, I've learned a lot. So and
that is why we're so happy. Yes, and that is why we're so happy to have you guys here, is because you guys are the experts in this realm. So let me tell you just a little bit about why we're doing this live today. So a couple weeks ago, we posted a cat tip, as we do every 3 times a week. And the cat tip was about waiting to neuter your male cats. And it was basically, just what we learned. That's our cat tip is learn, share, and grow. So we learn things and then we share it with you guys. And then hopefully we all grow together. So my cat tip was, let's, yes, it's a good idea to neuter your male cats, but let's not do it too soon and maybe wait until your cat is fully developed before taking that procedure, because it can lead to urinary problems going down the road, which is what I learned. And we got a lot of heat here on Instagram specifically, which is why we're back here.
But what I really enjoy and why I'm so glad that you guys are taking time from your incredibly busy schedules to join today is because when we do a cat tip like that and we get that kind of feedback, it really becomes clear that we're not taking enough time in those 30 seconds that we try to do it to put it in the context of these are indoor only males. These are our forever babies. We understand that shelters and rescues are kind of in a different place. It's like, I think Dr. Morgan had said you understand the usefulness of a pediatric neuter, but we really want to dig into this from the perspective of your experience, from the science that you guys have seen. And science is one of those things that is always growing and learning as well. So would really love to kind of broaden this out past our cat tip to really help some of these people who were very upset.
We got reported.
Yeah, very upset about this. So isn't that right, Friday? I know. So Dr. Kojer, let's start with you. Since you were our first kind of intro into this, what have you learned over your many years doing this as far as what's informing your decision?
Yeah, what I've learned is the importance of hormones. And hormones really control so many processes in the body beyond reproduction that they are vital.
Hold on one second. We just got a ton of static from your line, I think.
Oh, from my line?
Oh, it's better now.
Okay.
Okay. So the importance of hormones. We need hormones for growth. We need them for behavior. We need them for so many things beyond reproduction. And removing these hormones at such a young age can result in problems. When I first started practicing, spays and neuters were 6 months. By the time I got into the shelter, it was as soon as they were 2 pounds, which typically is 8 weeks in kittens. And, it's very easy. Zip, zip, you're done. And that animal's not going to reproduce, which is what we want in a shelter animal. But over the years, after pediatric neuters became the norm, we started to see more blocked cats and cats that were truly underdeveloped in the size of their penis and their urethra, which is where the problem lies with blocking in many cases.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, and I want to say to Dr. Morgan, when we're talking about pediatric spays and neuters, what age are we talking about there?
Well, usually the pediatric, like Lori said, is because our shelter was the same way. They had to be 2 pounds. So if we weighed them and they were 1.6, we'd send them back down to the shelter for another week and bring them back when they were pounds. So generally cats, it's in that growth phase, it's 1 pound per month. So it makes it pretty easy if you're wondering how old your kitten is that you found on the street, just weigh it. So that's usually about 8 weeks old. So we are spaying and neutering 8 to 9 week old kittens routinely at the shelters. And I get it. I understand why they need to do it. And I can give you a little stat from the shelter that we worked with. It was only a mile down the road from our clinic. They would have people prepay for spay and neuter for dogs and cats that were adopted before 6 months of age. And they tracked that over a 10-year period. Only 30% of the people actually through with spay and neuter, even though they had prepaid for it. So the pay return for spay and neuter program does not work. So that is why the shelters really are stuck with, we have got to have these spayed and neutered before they can leave. And if we want to keep them here until they reach maturity, we're going to have kittens sitting in the shelter till they're 8, 9, 10 months old, depending on breed, could be longer. And that's just not feasible. So that's why I say, I get it. I understand why it's done. But right now I happen to be sitting on a clouder of cats in my house. I think that's what it's called. And I do not want to do early spay neuter, but at some point I'm going to have to separate cats.
Yes.
Right. Well, and I think that's a valuable conversation to have as far as clarifying the cat tip. Certainly, is that we're talking about our indoor only male cats that we are aware that we had two sibling sons. Dr. Koger, when we spoke with you about neutering our Zorro, he had a sister. We are well aware of what happened, especially since girls can actually go into heat. I've heard as early as 4 months. I think predominantly it's like 6 months. But we knew that was something that we had to be very vigilant about and separate if that became a situation. What is the earliest that a girl cat can go into heat in your experience?
Generally 6 months, I would say it is what I.
Yeah. So they
Or
can go
the
into, but when would you recommend because a lot of people have asked, a lot of people now, since we're talking about neutering male cats, they're like, what about our females? What about our females? Do you guys have the same answer for males and females when it comes to spay and neuter?
I mean, I like 6 months or more. I like maturity, as long as the cat is secure. I mean, I think the one thing we all agree on is we are not allowing these cats to reproduce.
Right.
We are the fucking key.
Right. So if we look at it from a standpoint of sexual maturity, they're capable of breeding 6 months of age, but that's not really where our concern is. Our concern is, like the studies have been done in dogs, we have the same studies in cats that show that if we spay neuter before their growth plates are closed in their bones, the growth plates will stay open longer. So if we want to wait until the growth plates have closed and then do the spay or neuter, we're not going to have as many joint problems. And we don't usually talk about arthritis and joint problems in kitty cats, but let me tell you, they are there. And it's amazing how many times when you x-ray a cat who's 5 or 6 years old, you go, oh my gosh, look at all the arthritis in this cat's hips, in this cat's spine, in this cat's elbows. And a lot of that probably comes from the fact that we have been spaying and neutering too early. The growth plates stay open longer in those long bones. It's pushing them out of the joint. And Julie is asking, when do the growth plates close? And I actually looked that up yesterday, and there was a great study, a couple of studies done overseas. But it showed that the growth plates can stay open up to 700 days. So that's almost 2 years, particularly in the larger breeds like the ragdolls and the Maine Coons, who are slower to grow. So when you're looking at potentially a 20-pound cat, those growth plates may stay open for 18 to 20 months, in which case you really should not, like if you want to let those hormones do their thing, then you want to wait until they're closed. So it depends on the breed and the size of the cat, but definitely not before 8 to 9 months is when we're going to see those growth plates closing.
Wow.
And you mentioned, something, our experience, and this is obviously what we share with our community, our experience, we've got 4 boys right now. Oliver just came to us. They estimated he was about 1.5 to 2 years old. He was not yet neutered, so we had him neutered at that age. Zorro, our 4-year-old, we waited until 8 months or 10 months.
He was 8 months.
8 months. Hey, you kiddos. 8 months. And then Jack, we waited until he was 10 months. So 3 of our 4 boys, we waited longer for that neuter. Our one Pooh Bear was a pediatric neuter, and he is our only cat that has had any kind of urinary tract issues.
He's also limping at 12 years old.
Yes.
And he's 20 pounds.
Yes. So this is really a great example of kind of that case study you guys are talking about. And you mentioned the science that's available for dogs. There's a lot of science out there about dogs. There's not as much that we've seen that relates specifically to cats, but let's talk a little bit about science that is available for dogs and what we do know about our cats.
And if you know any science that's available for cats, because I found a lot of articles, but I didn't find necessarily research studies on cats specifically around this. Either one.
I did find actually a Swedish study on, Lori was talking about the size of the urethra not being, actually I found a couple of good studies, but there was a Swedish study that was done back in the early 1990s. So it's a 30-year-old study where they actually did look at the size of the urethra in cats neutered at 7 weeks, 7 months, and like a year and a half. Or no, not neutered, sorry. 7 weeks, 7 months, and not neutered. And according to that study, and again, it's a very old study, they did not see a change in the size of the urethra. But they did say that the cats that were spayed at 7 weeks really didn't have the maturity features. Like they never, like the males didn't develop the big cheeks or anything like that. And even the ones at 7 months really did not, like they always looked more like a kitten. They never developed the real maturity that we see. Like if you see a tomcat, like your guy that you didn't neuter till he was probably a year and a half old. So I would love to see more studies done on the urinary tract of these cats. I mean, I think part of the problem is we're not feeding them correctly. So if we start feeding cats correctly, that's how I saw the incidence of urinary blockage decrease in my practice by correct feeding. But interesting, my second job out of school, so I was only out of school like a year and a half. My boss at the time, so we're 1986, he said, we don't neuter cats here until 8 to 9 months old. And I said, really? Why? And he said, because we want them to reach maturity and we want their urethra to be bigger so that we see less blockage. Now, this guy, not holistic at all. We're talking he came from the pharmaceutical industry as a veterinarian and then was in practice. But it was really interesting that way back then in 1986, somebody was actually thinking, gee, doing these guys too young is not a good idea. So I've had that in my mind, pretty much my whole career. And the only ones that we ever did early were the shelter and rescue cats that we weren't given a choice.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that subject because Dr. Kozer sent this picture to me yesterday. And could you, Dr. Kozer, explain what this is?
So that is a standard, basically ballpoint pen next to a urinary catheter, an open-end Tomcat catheter. And the dimensions of that catheter, the diameter at the tip is 5/100ths of an inch. So it is tiny. And I have had cats that were blocked that I could not pass that tube into. So to me, and normally you can pass that right in. And obviously not if they're blocked at the tip, but once you cleared it out, it just feeds right in there smoothly. No, the whole urethra is so tiny that something that is 5/100ths of an inch diameter does not pass. And that to me is pediatric neutering. That those secondary sex characteristics like Judy was talking about with the cheeky face and everything and the body proportion. Well, that also applies to this accessory sex glands like the prostate and the penis and the urethra passing through it. And if that's not developed, we know it in both females and males. The external genitalia is tiny. It stays juvenile. And on the dog side, we have female dogs that have tiny recessed vulvas that are continuously plagued by urinary tract infections because they always have drops of pee kind of sitting in a fold of skin. But most people have never seen a urinary catheter. The length of it is, I think it's about 5 1/4 inches. So about the length of a pen, but the diameter is smaller than what you write with. And that's responsible for passing all the urine outside of the cat's body.
And we were talking about the science that's available. I think that a lot of the blowback that we got on this is pseudoscience. This is causation does not equal correlation. I mean, I think that a lot of times we find that science or peer-reviewed journals kind of plays catch up with the reality that people are seeing in their practices. And I feel like, Dr. Kojer, when we were talking to you about this and just that struggle of how many of the cats that you have had to treat that are blocked, I guess, number one, have you seen an increase over the years as that neutering age has been taken down to age for 2 pounds?
So, as Dr. Morgan pointed out, how we feed them is so important. So my population of my personal clients is somewhat skewed because they are either fed fresh food or at the very least a high quality canned diet, absolutely no dry. So those cats don't tend to block as much. Would I say block cats are more common in my area than they used to be? No, I think the numbers are about the same, but I would say the number with very tiny that are difficult to unblock has increased. Mm-hmm. And if anything, I should be getting better with practice at unblocking cats. And sometimes it'll take me half an hour. Sometimes I'll have to cysto these cats because their bladder has so much back pressure that I can't get in. And that's a life-threatening situation.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is an epidemic that we get questions about this topic all the time, every day. And we do know that food plays, such a foundational part in overall health. So I love that you're kind of making that connection as well. This is really about that holistic approach and trying to, what are best practices to give our cats the best shot. And I love that you also include diet in that. Dr. Morgan, what has your experience been over the course of your practice in dealing with cats in this situation?
Well, I have the kind of the same experience as Lori because my population of clients and patients is skewed. If you are bringing your cat to me, if it's a vegetarian kitty cat, you can't be my client. And if you're feeding dry food, I am going to do everything I can to change away from that. We didn't really see, it was interesting because as I was having new graduates join the practice, and so you want them to be able to see a little bit of everything, we could go months without seeing a blocked cat. So that's a wonderful thing when you have a huge practice with, thousands and thousands and thousands of clients. When you're not seeing blocked cats, it's a beautiful thing. I think if I were still working in emergency clinics, if I was working in a traditional practice where dry kibble was promoted for kitties, I think it would be a totally different story. And I think that, a traditional clinic is probably seeing blocked cats on a daily basis. And my sense would be that there are more of them with all the pediatric spay and neuter that's being done with these cats. So I think, I don't think it's a good thing. I think that they do have immature external genitalia. I think that they don't develop the muscling, their bone growth is skewed. There's just so many reasons why we should not be doing the 8-week, but there's also the reasons why we should, because we would rather have them have a home than be put down because there's no room in the shelter.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead.
Is my average blocked cat, and I work in a conventional hospital within as one of 2 integrative vets. So I have traditional colleagues, in the next exam room. The average blocked cat now is probably 16 to 20 pounds, which is, he should be a 10 to 12 pound cat. Yeah. Because eating dry food generally, if they're not my people, or even if they're eating 50-50, they tend to be huge. Is that your experience, Judy?
Yeah. So the obesity crisis in cats is ridiculous. And, that the obesity in the females was actually, and I know we're talking more about the males, but it was a huge problem for the females because their vulva would be so deep in those folds in the back end. Those cats are just one urinary tract infection after another. They're leaking urine. They're scalded. They're so fat they can't get back there to groom themselves. It's horrible. So, and I think that we know that spay and neuter in general, because we're taking hormones away, does impact the level of obesity that we see. an unneutered male is going to be very active. He's going to, and if he goes outside, he's going to roam a lot of territory. So they don't get obese if they are eating their natural prey. So I think we have a combination of things going on. And even with the obese males, we've got this huge 16 to 20 pound cat with this little tiny external genitalia, and it makes life really difficult for the cat and the veterinarian who has to deal with getting him unblocked.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Well, and let's talk about this really quickly. I want to ask each of you, independently, that, I was seeing, we can only see a comment at a time, but I'm seeing a lot of questions about diet. You had mentioned, just the difference in the growth plates closing, how that's really something that really makes a difference, not just for their bone health, but for this issue as well, their development. What are your, Dr. Morgan, I'm going to start with you. What are your best practices? And let's include girls in this too, because I know everyone's going to be like, when should I spay my girls? So best age to spay, best age to neuter, what we should evaluate there. And then what is your best recommendation for diet as far as foundational health?
So I think if we can deal with our little girls going in heat, because they probably will, wait for their growth plates to close. If we can deal with our males who might be starting to, show some behavioral changes, maybe thinking about spraying a little bit, although I never saw that in cats when we were 8 and 9 months old. But I think for both males and females, if we could wait till 10 to 12 months of age, give those bones a better chance of having the growth plates closed or be a lot closer to it, them to develop really to full sexual maturity, not just we're capable of breeding, but we really develop the muscle and everything that goes along with it. So I think that if we can wait to 10 to 12 months, again, we're going to see what happens in my house because I get this crowd right now. And then second thing for best practice for feeding, my cats were weaned onto raw food, frozen raw, freeze-dried raw. They get a tiny bit of canned food, but I have to tell you, the canned food makes their stink and gives them diarrhea. I'm not a huge fan right now. I'm really, really liking raw food. And then the third best practice is stop over-vaccinating kittens. Mine haven't had a vaccine yet. And let's see, the younger ones are 12 weeks and the older ones are 14 weeks. I'm on the road for 2 weeks, so they're going to be 14 and 16 weeks when they get their first vaccine, and that will be the only vaccine. And then a few weeks after that, they'll get a rabies vaccine, and then that'll be it for them. So I think, the 3 pillars are good food and not over-vaccinating, and then waiting on the spay neuter as long as we can tolerate them. Cats are not, we're having a huge discussion on my Facebook page right now about the different kinds of spays for dogs, vasectomies versus neuters. I don't look at cats the same way that I look at dogs. Cats like to make mammary cancer. Cats get aggressive mammary cancer 95% of the time, and it will kill them. So I think that females should be spayed to avoid the mammary cancer later in life. Males, I think that if we can wait to give them more of that maturity, then we should go ahead and neuter them for a couple of reasons. It's hard to live with the smell of male cat urine if it's an indoor cat. It is very difficult to deal with a cat who decides that he wants to spray. And if you have more than one cat, or if there are cats outside, they're going to mark their territory. That's nature. That's the cat doing its natural thing. And, if we want to keep them in our house, which is not a natural thing for them, but then they do their natural behaviors inside the house that they normally be doing outside the house, then we end up with very unhappy pet owners and cats that get dumped at shelters. So I am all for neutering the boys as well, but I would really like it if we would wait till late.
Yeah. Dr. Kozier.
I agree. And I've had people that had 2-year-old male cats that were intact that did not develop smelly tomcat urine and did not spray. So it's a very individual thing. And yeah, females, if you can wait till a year, that's fabulous, I think. Most people don't have a household in terms of intact animals, so it might not really be that much hassle. But yeah, skeletal maturity, mental maturity, normal body development, and everything Judy said about food. I've not had luck getting cats onto raw, but usually my people have not done it as kittens. They weren't weaned onto it. And I think that if you have that opportunity, because kittens will eat anything, that's the time to introduce that.
Yeah,
But
we can definitely vouch for that.
Yeah. For others, it's a fight. But that food has to have a high moisture content and a high meat content for me. And I will add extra water to canned if I have to, whatever it takes to get a more dilute urine.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to ask you guys one more question because we have so many people that
just one more question. I can talk to you guys all day.
I know. We're really lucky because all of our cats have come to us from the streets, right? So
it's from somewhere.
From somewhere. It's just, but they haven't been in a shelter. None of our cats have lived in a shelter. So we got to choose for the most part, other than the one that came from another household. We rescued him from going to the shelter. We've been able to have the choice of when to spay and neuter.
And when to vaccinate. I love that you mentioned that as the three pillars as well,
yes.
Dr. Morgan.
Yeah. But so many of our followers are beautiful rescuers, and they go to the shelters and they take in these kittens, and they've already, like you guys have experienced, they've already been spayed and neutered. They've already been vaccinated, usually at like 8 weeks of age. What would diet be your number one recommendation for those that are bringing in kittens and they didn't have the opportunity to make that decision?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Just plain and simple. Well, I think that's a really important question, though, because I can see, I'm sorry, you guys that are watching, I can only see like one line of something at a time, but I know that's, there are people that are scared now for their cat. But I do think that this is one of those amazing opportunities to be empowered, to be proactive, and starting to learn that there are more things than just being neutered too early, or maybe having combo vaccines or not spreading them out. There are things that we can do to really mitigate any kind of challenges those things present. So from both of you, I'm wondering that number one proactive thing we can do
moisture-rich diet, high meat content, preferably raw, balanced raw.
Yeah. And it's never too late to make the changes.
Right.
I do, obviously now I'm doing cat rescue because they all just show up at my house. But I've done dog rescue for 25 years, and I can bring in a senior dog, and we see this in our hospice group at Monkey's House. We bring in senior dogs that have had everything done wrong. They've had every chemical thrown at them, horrible food, no veterinary care, 25 diseases, and over-vaccinated. And we can turn them around. So it is never too late. So anybody who has adopted a kitten that has already been spayed or neutered at 8 weeks, and they got way too many vaccines already, and they're already on their dry kibble, it is never too late to make changes. It is never too late to improve the health of the cat and improve their longevity. So, even if you have a 10-year-old cat that everything's been done wrong for 10 years, go ahead and try to make as many changes as you can, because you can see huge differences.
Absolutely.
Dr. Kosher, I think you were about to say something and it glitched on us.
The other thing is, don't let your cats get fat. Bottom line, so many people leave food out 24 hours a day, mainly the dry food feeders. But I have canned food people who do that. Recognize that your indoor cat is not very active, does not need a huge portion of food.
Right.
So, and to be a 12-pound cat, don't let it be 16 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our cats, for that too.
Yes. Our cat's stomachs are the size of little ping pong balls, right? So it's so overfeeding is and letting them graze like cows is not not natural for them.
One more question, because I think this is another challenge.
One more.
I'm sorry. One more. I think that a lot of times we find ourselves in a challenging conversation with our conventional veterinarians, whether it's wanting to wait until we vaccinate, not doing the combo shots, whether it is waiting to spay or neuter, or whether it is feeding a raw food diet. Are there, as veterinarians, as integrated veterinarians, holistic veterinarians, conventionally trained, you really understand the language, how can we, cat parents, best facilitate that conversation so that we're still able to make decisions that we believe are in the best interest of our cats?
And on who the veterinarian. Some are more open, even that some are more open than others. I would say rule number one is be polite, be respectful of what you're asking for. What's your number one, Judy?
I would say, yes, be polite and respectful, but also be educated. And I mean, if you find a study that says, hey, and all I did was I went on a search engine, guys, and I put in, at what age do growth plates close in cats? And I got this beautiful chart that had a million different breeds and a million different bones and, when they all close. It was awesome. But if you go in with a study, and I wasn't sure whether the hormonal effect that we see in dogs also occurred in cats. So I asked that in the search engine, and I got a beautiful study that said, yes, it does. The growth plates stay open longer. So if you go in armed with, if you can find it, take a copy of that article and say, look, I read this. This is a peer scientific article. They never argue with those, even if it might have been a crap article that somebody wrote. It doesn't matter. But it was in a scientific journal, and it said the team at whatever university studied it. So that usually carries more weight. But if you go in, if you say, well, this holistic vet online said, they're going to go, oh God, it's that quack again. So I'm going to buy a duck costume. Karen Becker's been called a quack for a lot of years, and I think I finally joined the club. So,
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
But no, really, if you go in with educational material, and if you go in and you say, look, I looked this up because I was curious, and I found this article, and it says, look, this could be a problem, and I'm willing to keep this cat in my house. I'm willing to deal with the cat going in heat. I'm willing to deal with my little boy. Maybe he'll start spraying, maybe he won't, but I'm okay with that. I'll call you if something changes. Otherwise, we're going to wait till 9 months, 10 months, whatever. I mean, frankly, you're the owner. It's no different than your children. It's, if your pediatrician, well, your pediatrician does say, here, we want to vaccinate your kid every week for the first 6 months. But you do have the option of not doing it. You do have the option of saying, yeah, I'd like to spread those out. So it's okay.
I love that. Let's talk. I know we got to wrap it up. You guys have such crazy busy schedules. We are so grateful for all of your information, and it really is so empowering, I think, to actually be able to hear from people who have experienced this and share everything that you've learned. For everyone who would like to, who have been in the trenches.
Our cats have the zoomies really bad right now.
You guys have really been in the trenches, so your information is super valuable and empowering to all of us. For everyone that wants to know more about you, follow along with the education that you guys provide online, where can they find you, Dr. Morgan? I want you to also share a little bit. You've got a cat longevity course that is just invaluable. You were talking about some of those pillars, some of the basics. Talk about being armed with education. What an incredible thing. So let everyone know where they can find you and where they can find that amazing webinar as well.
So my website's drjudymorgan.com, drjudymorgan.com. And then you can get to our cat longevity course through there, but that's on Dr. Judy U. So there is a link from Dr. Morgan over to Dr. Judy U. We have a dog longevity course as well. We have a nutrition course. There's a lot of stuff on there and a lot of stuff coming. And on Facebook, I'm Judy Morgan, DVM, as in Doctor of Veterinary Medicine.
I love it. And I really want to vouch for that course, because it is an absolutely amazing course. And the link is actually in our bio here on Instagram. So if you guys are interested in it, you can click on the link in our bio to take that course. It's not too long, and it gives you so much amazing information.
Really digestible information too.
Yes.
It is invaluable. Dr. Lori Kozier, where can they find you and follow along with what you provide online?
Find me at healthydogworkshop.com. And on Facebook, Dr.
Oh, you broke up. Say that last part again.
On
Facebook, Dr. Lori Koger, DR, and then LAURIE. Either place. Well.
Oh, we love you guys so much. Thank you so much for joining us here on a Tuesday afternoon. It's afternoon everywhere, isn't it? All the way from the East Coast, you guys are joining us. But thank you guys so much for giving out so much valuable information and for helping us better explain the situation and that tip that got so much heat. So we love you guys.
What a wonderful opportunity. Thank you both so much.
Yes. We hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.